Hey guys, Dimension Master Studios here, how y'all doing? So I'm sure as you guys know, when it comes to the Wildbrain era of Ninjago, it brought along many changes when it came to the show. A lot of changes that I feel honestly improved the show and made it better. Stuff like the SWAT's 11-minute format and the animation change. Again, I think that these changes made the show better. But at the same time, there's one other really interesting change that the Wildbrain era of the show brought when it came to Lloyd. Mainly because when it comes to Wildbringer in the show, it actually started off Lloyd on this big and massive story arc that we've gotten in almost every single season in the Wildbringer of the show. And in today's video, I just wanted to talk about the storyline and why it's amazing. So let's get into the whole situation. The story arc that I'm referring to is the arc of Lloyd getting over Harumi and moving on from her. We've gotten this story arc for Lloyd ever since the events of the Ice chapter, and it's gone all the way up to the events of the island. Seabound didn't really have this. But again, for a majority of the Wildbrain era of the show, we just had this big story arc when it comes to Lloyd, and I honestly think that this is the best storyline any of the ninja have ever gotten when it comes to the show. And I just want to recap on what we have seen so far when it comes to the seasons and what makes this arc so incredible. So let's begin. Starting off with Season 11, this season actually did two major things when it came to Lloyd as a character. For starters, this story actually concluded Lloyd's arc of him having trust issues, which started all the way back during the events of Season 8. It concluded the story arc by having Lloyd overcome his trust issues by meeting with and traveling with Akita over the events of the Ice chapter. And by the end of the season, not only did Lloyd overcome his own trust issues, but he was also able to help Akita overcome her own trust issues, which again concluded Lloyd's arc of him having said trust issues, but it also started off Lloyd on a brand new arc of him just, again, getting over Harumi. And that started with, again, overcoming this initial thing that Harumi did to him, but also getting with someone who actually cares about him and really likes him. I think it's safe to say that when it comes to Akita, she definitely cares about Lloyd and likes him a lot. Way more than Harumi ever did during the events of seasons 8 and 9. And when it comes to Lloyd, you can definitely tell that when it comes to the whole situation, this isn't a one-sided thing. You can tell that Lloyd also has feelings for Akita. The two of them do definitely like each other. And that's definitely great, but it's not just that that makes the whole situation pretty interesting. One of the other things that I think is just really interesting is that when it comes to Lloyd meeting Akita, it's how the two of them were actually able to overcome their trust issues, mainly by just opening up to each other, actually. I know that this might sound a little weird, but just stay with me on this one. But I think that when it comes to Akita, she is the character who Lloyd is arguably the closest to out of any other character in the show, mainly because of one thing in particular. Akita is actually the first and currently only character in Ninjago who Lloyd's ever actually opened up to about his struggles and trauma, with Lloyd sharing his life story to Akita during the events of the Ice chapter. And Lloyd even admits that by talking about all this stuff, it feels good for him to get this stuff off of his chest. And eventually, when it comes to Akita, she ends up sharing her life story with Lloyd too. These two open up to each other and just talk about stuff that happened to them in the past and just how they got where they are. And we have seen stuff like this before when it comes to the show, with a character telling the ninja or just another character about stuff that happened to them in the past. But the thing that I feel makes Lloyd and Akita's situation a lot more special is how similar the two of them are to each other. Lloyd and Akita are very similar to each other in a number of different ways, with stuff like backstory, personality, storyline during the Ice chapter, and many more things. And it's these similarities that I feel really help their dynamic during the events of the Ice chapter, actually. And again, it just allows the two of them to bond and become closer with each other over the events of the season. And again, by the end of the whole season, the two of them not only have overcome their trust issues, but have genuinely developed feelings for each other. And I think that's something that's amazing to see. And again, it's just nice to see Lloyd be with someone who, again, actually really cares about him and likes him a lot. Up next, we have Prime Empire, where we have a number of different and interesting situations that happen. For starters, we see the effects that Akita had on Lloyd during the event of Prime Empire, actually. Because during the events of Season 12, Lloyd doesn't have his trust issues anymore. He is openly trusting the Scott, Okina, Racer 7, all of them, and he doesn't have any issues with helping them out at all during the events of Prime Empire. And I think that's definitely something pretty cool to see. Again, it just shows that Lloyd has developed as a character. But at the same time, we end up getting the interesting situation of Lloyd battling against the fake Harumi. And initially, when it comes to Lloyd, he does struggle with fighting against her because, there's all the stuff going on with his feelings. But eventually, Lloyd just settles on some stuff, mainly with him realizing that this Harumi isn't the real one. But I have a feeling that at the same time, when it came to Lloyd, he also just briefly remembered just the terrible and horrible person that Harumi was during the events of seasons 8 and 9. And in that moment, he basically realized just again how terrible Harumi is, and he did what he could in order to fight against her. And after Lloyd has the realization, he's not holding anything back when he's fighting against Harumi. Plus, also at the same time, I feel like this was also able to help out Lloyd a bit, because in a way, he was essentially able to get a little bit of payback against Harumi, considering, she was the one responsible for all the bad and terrible stuff that happens to Lloyd during seasons 8 and 9. And so again, Lloyd basically gets a little chance at revenge here. So, I feel like that was able to help him out a bit. Up next, we have Master of the Mountain, and when it comes to this season, it's basically a small repeat of what happened to Lloyd during the events of the Ice chapter, with Lloyd not being able to trust Vanya because according to him, all princesses are the same. Once again, showing some more stuff when it comes to how Harumi affected him, but by the end of the season, and Lloyd just overcame his trust issues again when it came to princesses because he was able to trust Vanya. Finally, we have the islands, where we get into a pseudo-conclusion to Lloyd's arc. I have a feeling that when it comes to Crystallize, this will have a proper conclusion to his arc, or at least I hope so. But still, when it comes to the island, we do have some pretty interesting things. Mainly with Lloyd comparing his situation to Twitchy Tim's, and how Lloyd points out that when it comes to Twitchy Tim, he's been knocked down and things for him aren't looking that good. And Lloyd can relate to this considering, well, he's been in the exact same situation. Harumi knocked him down during the events of seasons 8 and 9, yet despite that, Lloyd was able to find a way to just move past all that and find a way to make the best out of a situation, eventually overcoming the situations that he was put in with help from some other people. And when it comes to this, again, it just shows that when it comes to Lloyd, again, it shows that he has changed after what Harumi did to him. He's found a way to push forward when it comes to all this, and I think it's definitely amazing. And again, I feel like this is a pseudo-conclusion to the story, considering during the events of Seabound, we don't actually touch on this at all during the season. Because Lloyd has basically almost fully overcome Harumi at this point, so there really wasn't a reason to bring it up at all. And when it comes to Crystallize, I feel like this is where we're going to get the proper conclusion to the story, or at the very least, I hope that's going to be the situation, and where by the end of the whole season, Lloyd will have finally been able to move on from Harumi, and he will have finally gotten over her after all this time, and he won't let her affect him anymore. Mainly with the idea of Lloyd just no longer having feelings for Harumi at all, which I think that was basically a situation that was going on for a while when it came into the Wildbrain era of the show. So, there's that. Plus, also, I just have a feeling that during the season, Lloyd will basically realize that any idea of Harumi just being a good person, or the idea that she can change, that's something that isn't going to work out, and he's just going to let go of this idea in order to just fully get over Harumi. And again, I really hope we get a chance to see this, because I think it can make for a really great conclusion to this storyline. And just, again, when it comes to the Wildbrain era of the show, I think that they have done an absolutely phenomenal job of telling the story for Lloyd. Lloyd was knocked down pretty hard during the events of the Oni trilogy, and he went through so much more pain and trauma than he had ever gone through up until this point when it came to the show. Yet despite that, with the Wildbrain era of the show, he was finally able to find a way to move past all that. It's by overcoming his trust issues, getting together with someone who actually really cares about him, realizing how bad Harumi was, as well as also getting a small chance at payback for overcoming one last bit of his trust issues, and finally just being able to compare his situation to someone else's, and just basically showing how far he's been able to come as a result of everything that happened, and showing how much he's changed. And again, hopefully Crystallize will give us the conclusion to this arc, and I honestly can't wait to see. And so that's pretty much all I got for you guys. So tell me down below, what do you guys think? What are your guys' thoughts when it comes to Lloyd's storyline when it comes to the Wildbrain era of the show? Again, tell me down below, and I hope you guys enjoy. Later, guys, this is Dimension Master Studios, signing off.